How about now? Okay. Yeah, there's going to be a little lag.
Yes.
Jesse, man. You didn't plug in the cord properly. Oh, well. Well, you guys can hear us now? Okay, well, welcome once again. We are so glad to be with you, and glad that you're hearing as well. We've had a pretty decent week, yes. For those of you who are with us in Belmont, you know that we had a fantastic time, right, Jaden? Yeah, we had it. We had a good time in Belmont. But we're so happy to be here with you guys. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of yes in the chat, so thank you guys so much for the feedback. All right, so I think we're ready to start. Mama, are you praying to start?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. And please pray loud.
Ready? Mm-hmm. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for keeping us safe throughout this past week. We thank you for the blessings you bestow upon us. As we are about to worship and praise your name, we ask that you will draw near to us, and may we lift your name up high. May others be drawn closer to you, and help someone's heart to be touched in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Ross, what's the first song? Our first song will be A Shelter in the Time of Storm.
The Lord's our rock, in Him we hide, a shelter in the time of storm. Secure whatever may betide, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, moving straight from the burning sand. Faithful
Shade by day, defense by night.
a shade by day, defense by night, a shelter in the time of storm.
No fears alarm,
No fears,
no foes of fright.
no foes of pride, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, cooling shade from the burning sand. Faithful God, for the pilgrim's land, a shelter in the time of storm.
The raging floods
The raging
may round us sweet.
round us keep, a shelter in the time of storm.
We find in God
Find in
a safe retreat.
a safe retreat, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, moving shade from the burning sand. Faithful God, for the pilgrim's land, a shelter in the time of
O rock divine,
Oh, rocky,
O refuge dear,
oh, refuge dear, a shelter in the time of storm.
be thou our helper,
Be thou our
ever near.
ever near, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, moving shade from the burning sand. Faithful God, for the pilgrim's land, a shelter in the time of storm. Mighty rock in a weary land, moving shade from the burning sand. Faithful God, for the pilgrim's land, a shelter in the time of storm.
Amen. Our next song will be Deeper Yet, but while we're getting this song, we told you guys last week that we were going to be having a health nugget this week. We're going to invite somebody to speak on a topic on health. So that will be happening this evening. So when the person is speaking, just remember to write down your questions. If you have questions, there'll be a time for question and answer. So if you have any questions, make sure you write them down. Yeah. In the blood from the cross, I am in wars from sin, but to be free from souls, still I would enter in. Deeper yet, into the grave.
everyone. Well, I was expecting to hear you tell me good evening, but I know you can't. Or I wouldn't hear you if you did say. It's good to have you with us again this evening and our family worship. It's becoming a habit of having you around, or you having us around. I don't know who's around, but it's good to just be together anyways. We look forward to, this Friday evening worship, and we just pray that it continues to be a blessing to you as it is to us. We promised last week that this evening would be a very, very special evening. Well, we are able to deliver on the, how special this evening would be. I want to tell you a little story which will take us just a few seconds. Many, many years ago, many years ago, I remember in Grenada, those of you who are way overseas, that's in the Caribbean, right next to Barbados, just north of Trinidad, we had a singing group. There was a singing group, it was over the top singing group in Grenada, and it was called Eureka. I love that group, We actually were like, pack fans, pack rats. Anywhere Eureka was, we were. We would follow Eureka everywhere, go to other islands and stuff like that. And there was a friend of mine that sang in that group. And I love that guy with a very special love, You can't see you had a crush on the guy. People take it the wrong way these days, right? People might take it the wrong way these days, but, I'd always loved that guy. And we were able to catch up, over a few years ago. And we've been like really close and in touch. And we've been trying to work out today for many months now. And finally, we got it to happen. So let me introduce this special person. One, he's a handsome young man. Two, he's a very smart young man. Three, he's a married young man. Four, he's my friend. Very, very special friend. His name is Dr. Francis Amelie. And Dr. Francis Amelie, like I say, he's a very, very close friend of my family. Our children love him as an uncle. We spend time with him, at his home. And, he actually flew from Texas to Tennessee because the children were performing there at the National Quartet Convention. And he's like, "What you doing there?" When we told him, he said, "Is there an airport nearby?" We said yes. The next day, he and his wife were over with us in Tennessee, and we had a wonderful time. They were able to meet, all the gators and all these people, front. Anyhow, that's just between us now. But Dr. Francis Amelie and his wife Carol, they both live in Texas, in Houston, Texas. And he works as a critical care physician. He specializes in internal medicine, critical care, and nephrology. He has over 20 years of experience as a physician. He has worked 16 of those 20 years in critical care. I would not, introduce you to Dr. Amelie if I did not believe and trust, the message that he brings. We spent some time on his home, and he shared with us some information that has been very, very helpful to our family and our health. So I would like to share my friend and critical care physician, internal medicine physician, Dr. Francis Amelie with you tonight. I pray that you will listen. As Kezia said, any questions you have, you kindly write it down and then send it in. We'll sing a couple of songs after he's finished, and then he's going to answer some of your questions, maybe not all the questions, but we will try to get all the questions answered tonight. So, to all of you around the world, wherever you are, here is Dr. Francis Amelie, my friend.
Thank you very much. For all who are listening. Guys, hear me?
One second. Chin,
Yes, yes.
grab that for me. It might give a bit of feedback, but it's gonna have to do. It's on the speaker. Okay, turn it the other way. Spin it. Jane, turn the speaker. All right, Uncle Francis, can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, and I can hear you too. Awesome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I want to thank you. And I trust that what I have to say this evening would be of value to all of us, including myself, because sometimes we tend to go back and forth with what we need to do, and we never really stay one path. We tend to move back and forth. But anyway, are you hearing me well? Good. Okay. So I want to start with the fact that a number of years ago, when I was in New York, I found myself to be not in the best health that I could, and I wondered why. And so I decided to take a look into that. And I came up with some interesting findings. And I wondered, as a physician, why I was actually falling sick. My labs did not look very well, as a person, and I decided to do some investigations. Anyway, I found out that it was my diet and my lifestyle that was killing me. And so it is said now by some experts in nutrition and health that we are not actually living longer, we are actually dying longer. And I believe that to some extent. We are actually dying longer. We are dying long before we are dead. A lot of us have diabetes, high blood pressure, cancers, all kinds of ails that take us from the very extremes of our lives in the young 20s, 30s, all the way up to when we die. That's not very good. We are actually killing ourselves by what we are doing. And really, what we are doing is really not working very well. Conventional medicine, as we know it, is really concerned about not so much preventing diseases, but actually treating disease when they occur. And that is not very good. We should try to prevent it occurs. I can assure you that I live in the state called Texas, and we have one of the best cancer institutes in the world by the name of MD Anderson. And they make a lot of interventions in people's lives who have been afflicted by cancer. But I can assure you that they don't get much results for it. A lot of money is being spent, but they do not get much results for it. Not as much, if they actually got the results that they wanted with respect to the amount of dollars that is spent, I would say yes, but in fact, they do not get the results that they should get, because once the cancer gets to a certain stage, no matter what kind of drug you do or give the person will eventually die much shorter than their lifespan would afford. So I decided to take a second look at what was causing my problems. And so I went back to the Bible a little bit, because I believe that we were made by God, and He is the one who knows best about our bodies and how we should live. I had a little Toyota car one time, and when the car went bad, I didn't take it to GM, I didn't take it to Nissan, I did not take it to Volkswagen, I took it to Toyota. They made the car, they know everything about it. And so the same thing too, I decided to go back to the Bible. And the Bible has something to say about how we should live it with respect to how we should live, what kind of life we should live with respect to our diet. And in Genesis 1:29, it says, "Then God said, I gave you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And I wondered what happened to the animals. Why are they eating each other? And hear what he says in verse 30. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And so it was. So this was my baseline. And then I went to the medical literature and looked up a whole lot of things and realized that a lot of the people who are making inroads in nutritional medicine and who are actually advising us in the right path, they are actually echoing what the Bible has said in a large way. Now, the Bible is not a scientific book, but the Bible has a lot of important things to say. The science that we have today has, to some extent, enlightened us on a lot of the details that God did not give us. So now we are doing a lot of scientific research, a lot of investigations. We are knowing a lot of things, and God said in the days before that knowledge shall increase in times to come. And now we have a tremendous amount of knowledge, to the extent that we have more knowledge now than wisdom. We get a lot of knowledge, but we're not applying the knowledge in a way that is wise and sensible. So, in my quest to understand what was happening to chronic diseases and taking people's lives away, what I've come across with from reading the literature and understanding a whole lot of things is that what's killing us is two things. One, we are violating the laws of God, the moral laws of God. And two, we are violating his health laws. So medicine, conventional medicine as we know it, has taken a more reductionist approach to diseases and their treatments. I tend to want to take a more holistic approach to diseases and their treatments. So it is not waiting for diabetes to come along and then you treat it with some set of drugs, but it is a matter of looking at your lives, looking at our lives in such a way that we prevent it from happening by obeying both of those laws. And what is really ailing us to a large extent in today's day and age is really the way we are living physically. So our physical foods that we eat, we are eating a lot of processed foods, lots of oils, lots of animal products, and we are dying as a result of it. In the very beginning, as I have alluded to, God did not make us to eat animal products, but we are now eating more animal products than anything else. We know from all of the research that has been done, and these research have been spanning a whole many set of years. I've actually traced things back all the way to in the 1950s, where guys in India did research on animal protein and found that it is carcinogenic, not only carcinogenic to promote new cancers, but also it promotes the growth of cancers that are already present in the body. And then more recently, we have T. Colin Campbell from the University of Cornell in New York, who did a tremendous amount of research. For that matter of fact, he did about 65 years worth of research in about 35 years because he had a lot of help from his colleagues around the world. And he published all his findings in a book called the China Study. And he has categorically mentioned and documented that animal protein is very disastrous to our health and our well-being. So in the United States, Americans eat about 30% of animal products. They eat about 70%, probably about 60% processed foods, and only about 10% of whole foods. Of that 10% of whole foods, they eat about only 2% of vegetables, and the rest, which is 8%, comes from potatoes that are fried, and we eat it as fries and ketchup. So that is not a very good thing. So we are eating too much processed foods, too much animal products, and not enough of fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, tubers, and mushrooms. We know that people who eat these processed foods and animal products without eating a lot of the whole foods, we know that they actually live much shorter and they end up in more problems than anything else. We know that mothers who actually eat highly processed foods, fast foods, we know that the children that are born to them have more childhood cancers, autism, diabetes, allergies, and a whole set of other medical challenges that too numerous to mention. So we know that. We know that there is something called the health formula. Your healthy life expectancy, which is H, I didn't coin it, somebody else did. H is equal to N over C. N is the amount of nutrient food, the amount of nutrient content of the food per calorie, and the C is the calories. So H is equal to N over C. A simple algebraic formula. If we eat more nutrient-dense foods, our health goes up exponentially. If we eat more caloric-rich foods, our health goes down exponentially. So it's a simple relationship, but it is very important. It's called the health formula. We know that obesity, on the other hand, is actually equal to eating a lot of processed sugars and oils and salt. So that's why these processed foods that we eat, they have proprietary ingredients that give you the right amount of salt, sugar, and oils. You become addicted when you actually eat these things and you cannot stop eating it. But when we eat processed foods, for that matter of fact, they are highly processed, and not only that, these high dense caloric foods, the sugars are absorbed very quickly in our bloodstream, and it stimulates our appetite to eat more. So we have lost control over how much we should eat and when we should stop eating. When we eat whole foods like whole grains and nuts and seeds and tubers and legumes and all these things, we know that the sugars are not absorbed as quickly, and as a result of that, we can control our appetite and eat less. Even when we eat, let's say, a whole lot of beans and other natural foods, all of the sugars in those foods are not absorbed. Some of them are actually broken down by bacteria in the gut to short fatty acids and other things like that, and they are used as immune modulator of our systems, and they help to keep our system healthy. So not all of it is absorbed. A lot of it is actually, they bind other toxic substances in the gut from our food and elsewhere, and even certain of the fats, and they actually get it out. So these are very important, and it's making our lives difficult as we continue to eat and live the way we are eating. So you may ask me, some people ask me a lot of interesting questions. So they ask me, do we have a cure yet for cancer? And we do have the cures for about 4 cancers. I'm not a cancer specialist, so if there are any cancer specialists listening to me, I stand corrected. But what I do know is that we do not do very well in treating cancers. We have about 4 cancers that we actually could treat to a curative intent. But most of the cancers, we are not treating them at all to curation. We're actually treating symptoms and trying to prolong life by putting patients into remission. But sooner or later, the cancer comes back because we didn't change the lifestyle that we had, and the cancer comes right back, and the person is dead in a couple months or a couple years. So it is very important that we make those changes and stay with those changes when we make those changes, because to make those changes, those good changes, is to stay on the path to good health and long life. There are a number of places in the world that are called blue zones. One of those is in the mountains of Costa Rica. There is one in Loma Linda in California. There's another in Okinawa in Japan, where we have on a regular basis people living in their late 90s and even past the hundreds. And these people ride bicycles, they are very healthy, and they do not have dementia and all the things that we see in our modern day lives. So there is something to be said about it. These people are very happy. They have very good community and relations with each other. They behave in a way that promotes health. So it's not a magic cure. There is no magic cure for cancer, but it's our lifestyle and the way we live that actually determines how long we live and what kinds of diseases that we get. What I do know is that there are a number of things that actually lead to good health. So it is not just nutritional competence or nutritional discretion. That's one thing, and it's very important. The other thing that is important is actually exercise. I'll come to that a little later on. So exercise is actually very important, particularly as we get older. It is very, very important. Third, sunlight is very important. Sunlight is not just important for vitamin D production in the skin, but it also is important for decreasing of cancer in our bodies. We know that people who actually get sunlight, you can actually decrease the growth of cancer twofold. We must actually get fresh air. It is not good to breathe indoor air on a regular basis. We should go outside. The air outside, you think it is not very good, you should go outside and get fresh air. So that's very important. That's another aspect that we need to look into. We need to drink sufficient water. Our bodies is made up about 70% of water, not Coke, not Diet Coke, not Sprite, not Snapple, not any of these things. 70% water. And we should actually maintain adequate hydration at all times. So that is very important. A lot of people buy high alkaline water and all these things. I don't subscribe to that. What I think is important is to drink clean water. And the best water I think we should probably drink is the one that we use, the one that they use reverse osmosis technology to actually purify the water. It's the same technology they use for dialysis patients to purify the water with which the patients are dialyzed. So they use the technique of reverse osmosis. So that's the kind of water I generally buy. It's better to put it in glass bottles because we do not face with the problems of BPA, this type of compound that is in plastics. There are some plastics that are BPA, and if you can find, it might be a little better to buy as opposed to the regular plastic because they do leach out these chemicals that behave like estrogen in some cases, and they're quite toxic and even carcinogenic in some respects. All right. Other thing that is very important is forgiveness. We know that forgiveness also is very important in preventing diseases. We know that people who have a lot of strife in their family, who fight along with each other, they don't like each other, they hate each other for years. Imagine a brother threw his sister down when she was 10 years old and she had a massive bruise on her foot, and now she's left with a scar. And for 40 years, she hates this man. She's not talking to him. What do you think is happening to her? She now has breast cancer at the age of 51. How do you think she got this cancer? I think it's from diet alone? No, it is from hatred, strife, grudge. We hold grudges in our hearts. That's why God asks us to forgive. We have to forgive. And if we violate this law, we are not going to live very long. So that's very important. So forgiveness. So a lot of people want to eat the right diet. They want to eat the right foods. They want to exercise. They want to do all these funny things, but they are not willing to forgive their own brothers. How is it possible that we can live long and healthy? Other important things that I know, benevolence. Benevolence, being kind towards other people, showing kindness, really showing kindness to other people and helping them out whenever you can help them out. The good feeling that we have when we help someone is not because we have done a good deed per se, but it is really the effects of it from all the different hormones that are being released in our blood to make us feel good. So we must help others. Benevolence is very important. I mentioned forgiveness. I mentioned benevolence. We should be thankful. Thankfulness is a very important thing. And when we are thankful, we are actually healthier. We actually live healthier. It has very positive effects on our lives, extremely positive effects on our lives. And God even said that if we are not thankful, the very little that we have will be taken away and given to someone else who has even more than us. So we should be very thankful for the gifts that we have. Be thankful for the color of your skin, for the height that you have, for the eyes that you have, for the ears, for the toes that you have, even though they may be short. or thin or crooked, because nobody else is going to give you their toes or their fingers or their hands. So we should be thankful for all the gifts that we have and make use of them. Let me see what else we have here. There are about 10 things, but I'll answer those questions later on as we come about. But this is a general overview in terms of how I like to approach life. And I actually, when I see my patients, I actually talk to them about that. I really believe that we have to take life as the maintenance of our health in a holistic way and not simply as a reductionist approach. In other words, it is not, if I have cancer, what pill can I take? What this can I take? What little thing I can do here? What little bush or herb I can take? It is really what has caused this cancer to come about, and how can we now reverse it, or how can we prevent it from starting in the first place? And it is not a reductionist approach, but it's a comprehensive approach looking at everything that affects our lives, both emotionally, spiritually, physically, educationally, academically, financially, on all these other things. If we are not represented well in those areas, all these things lead to a number of stress on us. So stress, as we know, is a major factor in disease processes. We know that about half of the heart attacks that occur in people occur after there has been some kind of stress. Wife gets the husband mad, he storms out of the house, curses her out, or vice versa. The guy has a heart attack right after that. So we know that when something happens to us and we become very stressful, half of the heart attacks occur there. We know that. So there's a lot of things that can happen to us as we live these lives that are not according to a certain path. They lead to all kinds of problems, and we are not willing to make those changes for the most part. We want little pills here and little pills here. We are not willing to make those changes. But if we are serious about it, we can actually prevent these diseases from coming on in the first case. And even when they do occur, we can reverse a lot of them. We may not be able to reverse all of them because sometimes they are in the last or end stages of their sojourn, and so that's a problem. But I think I want to stop here and then give you all a chance to ask any questions.
All right, thank you, Uncle Francis, for that word. So yes, we're going to give them a chance to ask some questions. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and write them in the chat. We're going to sing 3 songs, just in case some people are behind on the stream. But yes, so go ahead. If you have any questions for Dr. Amelie, you can ask him in the comments section, and we will. Okay, so he's an internal medicine. He specializes in internal medicine. He works in critical care, and he's also a nephrologist. All right. Okay, so our song will be "The Great Physician Now Is Near."
Oh, hear the voice of Jesus.
thou near me. Temptations lose their power when thou art nigh. Okay, well, on YouTube, well, Uncle Francis, it seems that you're a great teacher because nobody has a question on Facebook, on YouTube. So, can turn the volume for you, please. Okay. Okay, this one? Okay, so Agnes Jones is asking, Doctor, does forgiveness play an important role in healing body, mind, and soul?
Absolutely. That's the short answer.
Sorry? Okay, and the next one is... I'm sorry.
I received you.
I did. Sorry. You can go ahead, okay. Uncle Francis.
Okay. I am not so sure if research has been done on that, but I know some research has been done on a number of other things, but I'm not absolutely sure if research has been done on that. But I do know that there is absolutely a positive effect on people forgiving each other. And yes, it has a very positive effect on healing the body. And that is why I made mention of it. People actually sometimes come down with cancers and other types of ailments. And if you go back in their lives, it is not the diet or lack of exercise, but it's the hatred that they have for years. You know that
Sorry, I think that last piece was a bit cut off. So you say the last piece again?
So I am saying that clearly people who keep grudges and who have absolute hatred in their heart for other people, they are affected very negatively by this. And it has very negative effect on our body's ability to heal itself, on the immune system. It actually depresses the immune system. And I don't know if there are actually quite a bit of studies done on it, but I think there are studies done on it. I just don't have the time to look at it. But clearly, that is something I'm going to look up to see, because I know there are a lot of other research that has been done on other aspects, like love and prayers and other things like that, and they have found a very positive effect on our lives. And for the matter of fact, if God has told us that forgiveness is critically important in our lives as Christians and to get along with each other, how much more we would think that a doctor will have to come and tell us with research. I think it would be ludicrous for us to see something in the bright daylight with the sunlight. We've seen that it's true, yet we're going to wait for some little doctor down the street who has some degree in medicine to come and tell us this nonsense. No, it is true. So if we don't forgive and if we keep hatred in our hearts, it has very negative effects on our immune system and our ability to fight diseases and other ailments. So that's absolutely true.
Okay, awesome. All right, so next question.
What is the cause of the long-term? Yes, okay, that's one thing.
All right, so the next question is, what is the cause of a young child 6 years old taking long to mess in Canadian terms? Sometimes every 3 weeks she's going off. Okay, so what is the cause of a young child about 6 years old taking a long time to number two in the bathroom to pass solid waste? Sometimes every 3 weeks she's going off.
Okay. I am not a pediatrician, but there are some common things that we need to rule out. And so a pediatrician might actually be able to give you a better answer, but here what I would say. First of all, I would look to see if there is any neurologic dysfunction of the bowel. There are some people who inherit neurologic dysfunction of the bowel, and they do not have all of the neural connections to the different parts of the bowel very well. And as a result of that, the bowel could be the bowel could have difficulty in actually having peristaltic movements all along the pathway until stuff gets out. One of the disease processes that we know is called Hirschsprung's disease, where that kind of a thing can happen. The other thing that can happen, so there are neurologics that can occur, that they are inherited, they are going to create a problem, and the patient should be evaluated properly by a pediatrician, and if he needs or she needs further investigations, they may want to get him or her to a pediatric gastroenterologist. Okay. Second set of things. I have come across a lot of problems like that, not just in adults, but also in children. I don't treat children, but sometimes people tell me about these things, and actually, when we do make the changes, you see that the patient becomes normal in their bowel movements. When children grow out of their nursing stage, that is, they now don't need any more milk, parents give a lot of cow's milk. Now, cow's milk was not made for human babies. It was made for cows' babies. Rat's milk was not made for humans. It was made for little rats. And any of the other milk sources were not made for us. The only milk that we should have been drinking is our mother. Once we have been weaned off of that, we should not drink any more milk. However, a lot of doctors and pediatricians will tell you that the child needs calcium. Well, you get calcium from milk, because that's very erroneous. Most people, I would say, for the matter of fact, almost no one is deficient of calcium. If they have a normal GI tract, normal everything, they are not deficient of calcium for the most part. Even if they eat a bad diet, they are not deficient of calcium. For you to become deficient of calcium, something else has to be going on. And without those maladies, you are not deficient of calcium, so you should not be drinking calcium to get calcium. You should not be drinking milk to get calcium. In milk, there is something called casomorphins. These are substances that behave like morphine. They are like opioids. They can bind to the opioid receptors and behave like morphine. And they can cause constipation. They can really cause the child to be bunged up. And if the child eats a lot of cheese, there's how much pounds of milk it takes to make a pound of cheese, about 12 pounds of milk, depending on what kind of milk or where you get it from. It takes about 12 pounds of milk to make 1 pound of cheese. So in cheese, they have the same thing. In milk, they have the same thing. So these children can become totally bunged up. Not only bunged up, but you are increasing their risk of getting diabetes type 1, heart disease, allergies, upper respiratory infections, and a whole lot of things. So we have to make sure that the child proper nutritional supplement. When I say supplement, I don't mean pills and all these things. I mean a proper nutritional intake that is with whole foods that are not processed. So I am talking about fruits, vegetables, beans and peas, which are legumes, whole grains, that is the grass family. Then you go to tubers, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, and all these things. So these are the whole foods that we should be eating, not the milk and cheese and eggs and processed meats and all these things. We know there are a whole lot of problems associated with it, including constipation, including people being bunged up and not months, not even for months, but for days or even a week, they may not go to have a bowel movement. We know that people who have long contact of the waste products with their colon, They can lead to polyp formation later on and other problems that can lead to cancer. So we want to get the waste gone out of our system readily. Now, there are people who have lost what they call the gastrocolic reflex. Do you know, I have lost it when I was in New York. When I was living in New York, I lost it. The gastrocolic reflex means that when you start eating, immediately you should feel the urge to go to the bathroom to evacuate what you ate yesterday. I lost that. Once I started to change my diet and I started to put things in the right place, as soon as I saw food or as soon as I started to eat, immediately I had to run to the bathroom. Some people have lost that completely. Some people have not had a bowel movement in 1 week, in 7 days. They haven't had it. And so these people are constantly bunged up. They are constantly at risk for all kinds of problems. They end up with diverticulitis as a result of diverticulosis, and then end up with infection. They have to have operations on the colon and other things like that. So it is very important that we do not add physical things that increases the risk of constipation and slow transit of stool out of the belly. If there are neurologic problems, then the child should see a doctor and have it assessed and addressed, and then appropriate interventions should be taken to have the child treated in the proper way.
All right. So someone had asked a question concerning, asking if your advice for, basically your advice this evening was to eat properly and what things they should eat. But I believe you answered that question just now. So the next question is, doctor, you are on point, not this one? Okay. What is the cause of pain in your lower back? Because the person is having pain right now and they can't sit, stand, lie down for long.
Okay. Okay. So a lot in the United States and elsewhere are having lower back pains. The cause may be many. Sometimes the cause could be very, very ominous, and we should not mix up one for the other. So most of the lower back pains is actually caused by inflammation in the lower back. We have what are called spinal arthritis. There are other times when the pain in the back is not from spinal arthritis, but from actually metastatic disease. That is, cancer has moved from where it originated to the bones. And we have to be sure that we are not missing that. If the person cannot lay down, cannot stand, that I'm wondering if they do not have a pathologic fracture. That is, cancer has gone to the spinal column and has caused a fracture to the extent that they cannot stand or sit for very long because they are putting pressure on that area. So they probably need to have a serious, urgent medical evaluation with imaging that is appropriate to be sure that they are not dealing with something like that. With respect to the more common type of causes of back pain is really spinal arthritis and inflammation. The more meat we eat and the more processed foods we eat is the more we cause inflammation in the joints of the spinal column. By increased weight gain, we also put a lot of pressure on the disc that is separating the two bony disc, if you will. So the disc this middle disc is what helps to absorb the shock when we walk and when we run and all these things. And what happens when we eat bad foods, these discs can become degenerate and they can actually burst and they can extrude themselves out of the column after the two vertebrae. So they are sandwiched between the two vertebrae, and they can extrude themselves out and pinch the nerve that is coming out of the foramen of the spinal column and lead to pains down the leg, the thigh, or wherever else. Depending on what nerve is affected, you will have the distribution appropriate for that particular distribution. If that is not happening, the person is simply having lower back pains. They probably do not have an extruded disc yet that is impinging on the nerve, but simply inflammation and early arthritis that is beginning in the spinal column. So the more meats we eat, the more processed foods that we eat, is the more we will end up with more pains, especially as we gain more weight, we put more pressure, we do all kinds of things, the spine becomes unstable. Before you know it, you start tearing ligaments, start tearing muscles, because the weight is too much for the column to carry. Not only that, we do not exercise as regularly, so our muscles are not very strong anymore. And we put in all this weight on it, so we tear muscles, we tear ligaments from the bone, and before you know it, our spine becomes unstable. We start shifting things, what we call endothesis, and before you know it, we have all kinds of problems. So a lot of us at the upper limits of our ages, like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on, if you look on the spinal column x-rays or whatever modalities we use, you'll see significant arthritis there. Some people lose the normal curvature behind the neck. They lose the normal curvature in their lower back. They end up with all kinds of problems. You can see disc protrusions. You can see all kinds of things. So the fact, however, that person cannot stand or sit or lie for very long, I would advise them to get evaluated very quickly to make sure that this is not a malignancy that has gone to the bone and has caused some pathologic fracture. That's very important, because if the person doesn't know that, then they can become paralyzed. So that's very important. If the person is very heavy, if they are heavy with respect to their weight, then obviously that might be not something like that, but it might be something else. But that is what I would actually say on this.
All right, so last two questions. Somebody's asking, is there a blue zone in Grenada?
No. There is no blue zone in Grenada. There is a red zone. And that red zone is that the people in Grenada are eating and living in a way that is creating a lot of diseases. Now, I do not know what is the cancer rate in Grenada, but I know it's extremely high. In the last many years, okay, let me step back a little bit. In the 70s, when I was a young boy, we did not have as much cancer diagnosis as we had now. And don't tell me better doctors in Grenada. We have more doctors now in Grenada, but they are not better than what we had before. So don't tell me that it is lag time in diagnosis. No. So we have people, our people are eating very poorly. We are eating just like Americans. We are eating just like the British, just like the Australians, and just like everybody else around the world. McDonald's and Pizza Hut and all these people have set up shop down there. And people now take it some kind of a highfalutin thing, where if they go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, they sit at the window so you can see them buying a Kentucky box of fried chicken for $150. It's actually $150 that was 10 years ago. I guess it's about $300 now for a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken garbage. So now they feel it's a high style living, when they sit in McDonald's and sit by the window so you can pass and see them eating their Kentucky Fried Chicken. So that kind of thing is really what is killing these people in Grenada. Listen, only recently, a young lady said to me, I have cancer. I said, how old are you? She said, 34. She has cancer. She had an operation. She's only 34, which means that if cancer begins about 10 to 15 years before you actually know it's there, 34, you take away 10 from that is how much? 24. And take away another 5 from that is 21. So imagine at 2021, you are developing cancer and you don't know. So we have no blue zones in Grenada. The whole of Grenada is a red zone. And nobody in Grenada is talking about it. The doctors are not talking about it because they know nothing about health and nutrition. All they know is about medicines, that's all. They treat medicine just like everybody else treats medicine, a reductionist approach. So we need better training, we need better awareness, and we need to really do better, because we are all dying of cancers. Listen, in America, many years ago, not so long ago, but probably 10 years ago, the cancer incidence in the America was 1 in 2. So 1 in 2 persons. They said by the year 2020, we are 2020 and we are halfway down 2020. The incidence of cancer in the United States was expected to be 1 in 1 in America by the year 2020, which means that every person in the United States who eats and lives in a certain way is expected to get cancer and die from it. Grenada is no different. We have no blue zones in Grenada. Now, we do have a lot of Seventh-day Adventist Christians. And in Loma Linda, where there is a blue zone, and it is a primarily Adventist community, and the Adventist people have been studied very well by the literature, these people in Grenada who are Seventh-day Adventists, they are eating worse than those people who are non-Adventists, and they are getting diseases worse than who do not have those kinds of attitudes. Imagine that. We know what we should be doing, but we are not doing it. How could you solve this problem? We are digging our graves faster than we can even talk by what we eat and how we live and what we do. I'm going to add one more thing. Animal products is not a health food. Fish, as good as that grouper and that bonita and that fried jacks is, they are not health foods. They are toxic and they are dangerous to our health. Even the foods, even the meats that God said that we may eat, he didn't say that we must eat them. He said we may eat. They are dangerous to our health because originally, as I mentioned when I just started in Genesis 1:29 and 30, he did not give us animal products for our food. He said the plant-based foods are for you meat. Now we are eating everything. The Adventist people in Grenada and other people, they are dying in the same way. They are not living well. They are dying of cancers all over the place. You know it, and we do not have good health care. We do not have good health care. So it means, therefore, we have to depend more on primary prevention, not secondary and tertiary prevention, because we do not have these systems of health to support these kinds of things. We do not even have medical insurance in Grenada. Even in the United States, not everybody in the United States has medical insurance, which means that a lot of people do not have good health care. And even if they have health care, they don't know how to access health care. Not only that, there's a lot of disparities in health care because of the black-white divide. God says people from every walks of life will be saved in his kingdom. He says people from every kindred, towns, nation, everything. Blacks are no better than whites. Whites are no better than blacks. Indians are no better than Chinese. Chinese are no better than everybody else. We are all one human race. We are all made up of genes. Plus, so if we eat and live in a certain way, our genes will be affected by what we do. We know it. I just can't get into all the details right now with that thing, but it's an overview. Maybe the next time when I come on, I can actually take a more specific topic and actually go a little more in detail in terms of what we need to do. But I'm giving us a general overview now in terms of how things are. So we have the short answer, we have no blue zone in Grenada or in the Caribbean. They are all red zones.
Okay. So our last question is, the person wants you to advise them on what to eat if they are supposed to stop eating meat.
Good. That's a very good question. Now, do you know that most doctors don't know what is a proper diet? They cannot tell you what is a healthy diet. That's the sad thing. Why? Because when I was in medical school, they gave me only 2 weeks of nutrition. Nutrition was basically biochemistry, totally useless, almost useless, because they didn't tie it in with real life. So I could not make sense out of the biochemistry. I understood it to some extent, but not really. I did not understand how it impacted my life in terms of nutrition and my health and everything else. It was really very abstract and very disjointed from everything else that I should have known. So let me tell you what you should eat. In a nutshell, you should eat what I would describe as a whole foods, plant-based, nutrient-dense way of eating. I don't like to use the word diet because it's really not a diet. It's a lifestyle. It's a change in lifestyle. What do I mean by that? Well, you are going to eat the things that are plant-based. not the things that are otherwise. And they must be whole, meaning that they must not be highly processed. What do I mean by that? Peanut butter is not peanut. Peanut butter is a set of junk contrapted together so that you could become addicted to it. It has very little nutritional value and a lot of calories and a lot of things that should not be in it. Secondly, fish and meats and other animals are not health foods. You do not need animal products to be healthy. Now, Harvard in the year 2000, and let me see, I have it written down here. Actually, they had a paper published in Harvard, from Harvard University. They published it on the 8th of the 8th, 2019 in Scientific Reports, looking at what is the percentage of animal product, or what is the percentage of meat that an adult needs to have in his diet to make it a healthy diet. And could you guess how much percentage of meat we should have in our diet to make it a healthy diet? Zero. Zero. That's important. So that's a very important study. Very important study. Zero. You know what they found when we eat animal products, when we eat animal protein? It leads to cancers, heart disease, dementia, all kinds of other problems. We know that. We know that. We absolutely know that. It is true, true, true. Now, so the foods that you're going to eat that constitute a proper diet. Now, I actually read a lot in terms of a lot of the other guys who actually do a lot of the work. I don't do a lot of research in that because, you know, I do not have the support system. But there are other guys who can do that and they do it. So I follow them and I read what they have to say and I read other things. So there are guys like Ethelstein. He's from the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Ethelstein. Joel Furman, who came from the University of Pennsylvania. He lives in New Jersey right now. He's a nutritionist. He's very, very good. We have Dr. McDougall, who is Seventh-day Adventist. He's a nutritionist. He's a specialist. Very, very good guy. We have other guys like T. Colin Campbell from Cornell University. He wrote a book called The China Study. And we have a whole lot of other very, very, very good guys. So let me tell you the foods that you need to eat. The most abundant thing in your plate should be vegetables, particularly green vegetables. They have all of the phytochemicals and micronutrients that are in your diet that you need to prevent cancers and to suppress cancer growth and to repair DNA and to do all these things that are wonderful for our bodies. So we have vegetables, the most abundant. Most people say they call it salad and they use it as a side dish. This is our main dish. It should be our main dish. So salads, I don't use the word salad, vegetables. We should eat a lot of those things. Now, I know some of the nutritional value of kale and other things like that. So for example, kale, for the most part, plus or minus, depending on where it's grown, the season, the sunlight, it has, out of a possible 1,000 nutrients, it has 1,000. Mustard greens, 1,000. Collard greens, 1,000. Watercress, 1,000. Mustard greens, 1,000. Bok choy has about 900. Spinach has about 600. Yellow bell peppers, which is really not a vegetable, but we use it as a vegetable. It's really a fruit, but when we use fruits like vegetables, we call them fruit vegetable. That has about 400 plus for the red and yellow and orange. The green has about 200. So these are the nutrient to caloric. So 1,000 to 1. So very high nutrients, very low in calories. So we have vegetables, which should be the number one in your plate. It should, whether it be for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, vegetables should be the largest portion in your plate. Secondly, you should go to fruits. Obviously, if you have disease already, then you may want to modify that a little bit, because if you have diabetes, you want to not eat a lot of over-ripened fruits because of the glycemic index, because it may drive your blood sugar upwards and cause problems. But for the most part, fruits is the second largest in your plate, Third, you go to legumes, the peas and beans, any type of peas and beans. I would say keep away from the canned stuff, no canned stuff. So no cans, leave those things out. Get the regular dry beans or whatever beans and cook them. Then we go to whole grains. Whole grains are the things from the grass family for the most part. So we have quinoa, we have rice, not white rice, black rice, yellow rice, red rice. You may ask me, I didn't mention brown rice. I don't eat brown rice generally speaking. Occasionally I do, but why I don't eat it? Because some people are very dishonest. They paint the white rice brown and charge you a bigger price for it. So I do not know whether or not what I'm eating is really brown rice or painted brown rice or painted white rice, so I don't eat brown rice for the most part. But if you eat black rice, red rice, yellow rice, the rice that is unpolished is good. Corn is a very good thing, it's a nice grain, but I do not eat American corn for the most part because a lot of it is genetically modified. And a lot of what is genetically modified, we don't know what it's going to do to us later on, is surprises. We're going to be faced with surprises later on. We don't know the effects on our health. The scientists who have made these contraptions, they are not telling us what it is all about. They're not telling us the side effects. But what we do know is that later on in our health, we may have health problems or challenges that we do not have an answer for. So I do not use American corn for the most part. After that, we go to, so there are different types of grains. You can go and look online, you can get tons of grains. So that's just a few I've given you. We have barley, oats, we have whatever it is. Next thing we go to tubers. Tubers are things that grow under the ground. They are what I call root vegetables, or what we will call, we call them provision in our local parlance. Provision or ground, tubers, or whatever it is. So these are yams. If you go to Africa, they call it cocoa yams with respect to dashin. So dashin, they would call cocoa yams. We call it dashin. And all the family that comes from that lily family, so Tanya, Eros, dashin, and all the different varieties that I've seen coming from South America, I don't know the names. I eat them because I know them. Then you have cassava. You have things like carrots, beets, turnips. You have things like radishes and other things like that. So anything that grows under the ground like a root, that is a tuber. So ginger, turmeric, all these things are things, right? Then I go to the seeds. There are 5 top seeds, and these seeds are where we get our omega-6 and 3 from, and we get them for the most part in the right ratios. I do not use fish oil. I do not partake of that. So I use my seeds. It's a source where you can get a lot of the omega-6 and 3. So what are the seeds? You have pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, you have sunflower seeds, chia seeds, and you have, what's the other one? Sesame seeds, the 5 seeds. Now, I prefer those that are not oil roasted, because when they oil them, when they roast them with oil, they add in salt to that. You may eat more than you should be eating. So I only eat the roasted ones without salt or without oil, because once he has oil, they're using that to add on the salt to it so that the salt stays. So I do not buy for the most part, I do not buy the ones with the oil roasted component. I avoid those, just buy the ones that are roasted, that's it. Or I may buy just the raw ones if I like that. Okay, then I go to nuts. Nuts, any type of nuts is good, but you should eat them sparingly. They are very healthy, but you should not eat a ton of nuts. Sit down and eat a whole bowl of cashew nuts in one setting. That's not very healthy. Again, because of all the saturated fats and so on. Now, so this is it. And so what I do for an ideal meal for me, what I do, the major part of my plate is vegetables, followed by fruits, either in the form of smoothies, a cocktail, or just eating the fruit like that. Followed by legumes, peas and beans, followed by whole grains, followed by tubers, followed by seeds, followed by nuts, and then other. Other is everything else. That includes things that have a face but a face and or a mother. Anything that has a face and or a mother, it goes into that category. So all of the processed foods, all of the oils, all of the butter, the margarine, the peanut butter, the jams, the bagels, the pancakes. Some years ago, I see people in Grenada used to talk about they eating pancakes because the Americans came down there eating pancakes and they wanted to show that they were in the same class as these white Americans, and they were talking about how they eating pancakes. They didn't know they were killing themselves. So no good. You know, I did one thing. Many years ago, I went to Grenada and I did a very funny thing. I went in the graveyard and I started from the middle cemetery in River Road. And I went all the way up to the top. Because you see, even in death, they stratify who is important from who is not important. The very poor people are buried in the bottom cemetery. And the people who have a little well-to-do, they are buried in the middle cemetery. And those who are rich and affluent and close to the white man's color, they are buried in the top cemetery. Except if you have a business and you have a lot of money and you can buy a coffin for 50,000 grand there, then they'll bury you in the high place up there. So I went and I started to look to see what were the ages of people and their death. And it was very surprising. I really thought that the people in Grenada lived for a long time, but it was not true. What I found in my just observation is that most of the people that died, they died in their 50s to 60s. Most of the people fell into that category, the 40s to about 60s. The next category was in their 70s. There were a few sprinklings in the very young age range of life, in the 0 to 3, 5 or so. And then sprinkling of people who lived past their 100 years or who were in the late 90s. So what I realized that even in the years gone by, we were not living for very long. And it has gotten worse. We have to change. And if we don't change, we are all going to lose our lives prematurely. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And I advise you to make those changes now so that you don't be fooled to believe that meat and eating meat is a good thing. I'll tell you one more thing. What we do know is that people who eat animal protein, any type, whether you eat animals on the earth, whether you eat fish in the sea, whether they are good to eat or not good to eat based on what God said, whether you eat insects or whether you eat birds, all of these animal proteins have essentially the same amount of cholesterol. That is not the issue. I don't care about cholesterol. What we do know is that all of these animal proteins lead to the hastening demise of your kidney function. We know that. So we know that people who eat meats, these animal protein kills our kidneys much more quickly than anything else. Now, when we have two sets of nutrients, we have macronutrients and micronutrients. In the macronutrients, we have things like fats. That's the big ones. Fats. We have proteins. We have carbohydrates, and we have nucleotides. Nucleotides are a sort of a complex sugar where we have a phosphate on it and we have a base. A base could be what we get into our DNA, thymidines, cytidine, or whatever it is, right? So nucleotides. And in our stomach, in our early part of the small intestine, which is the duodenum and so on, we have a lot of these things being digested there and so on, and most of the absorption will take place in the jejunum. So a lot of these breakdown products the absorption will take place in the jejunum. A little bit of the absorption takes place in the ileum, particularly in the distal ileum of certain vitamins like A, D, K, and all these things. And by the time we get to the colon, nothing really is absorbed very much there except for water and probably a few other things, but that's basically it. But we need to understand that if we eat lots of macronutrients in excess of micronutrients, our lifespan is curtailed. We live shorter. Could you see, I have seen so many times a wife and husband who eats the same food. The wife has diabetes, the husband has diabetes. The wife has high blood pressure, the husband has high blood pressure. I recently got an email from a friend from college. And she asked me if I know this guy. When I put up his picture, his wife was standing together. I remembered him very well. Now he has end-stage renal disease on dialysis, and he looks so sick. His wife also has cancer. They didn't say what type of cancer, but both of them are literally in a very bad state. Why? Because they eat together. Those who eat together and eat the same thing ends up generally with the same type of disease processes. So we have to change. So this is what I would eat. So the way in which I came down with it, the vegetables, the fruits, the legumes, the whole grains, the tubers, the seeds and nuts. That's the way how I put it in my plate. So from the top is the highest amount. And as I get down to nuts is the smallest amount. And if I feel that I want to violate the principle that I just talked about, if I have room in my belly, then I may eat in the other category. But I do not eat in the other category before I'm eating the good category. And once I eat in the good category, most times my belly is too full to even bother with the bad category, so I do not eat in the bad category. So that's the way it should be. You should eat foods that are plant-based, whole. You don't need meat to be healthy. If you are eating meat, you are not healthy. You cannot be healthy.
All right, so we have technically 3 questions, but we're just gonna keep with 2 because I feel like one of them might be too long because we're running out of time. So very quickly, can you just wash pumpkin seeds and eat them?
I am not so sure because some people do not take kindly to eating raw things, and they sometimes their stomach may react. So it is probably better to sort of denature the thing a little bit, so bake it or something like that. But some people do not take well to eating even raw vegetables. They have to scald it in the pot for a couple of minutes or so. So some people can't even eat raw. They can't even eat raw spinach. So I cannot speak for everyone. If you can eat it that way, that's fine. But if you can't eat it, I wouldn't say you have to eat it because that's the way you should eat it. Okay, so I think everybody should know their own body and treat it accordingly based on what they can tolerate, based on their enzymatic systems and how they know that the body would react.
Okay, all right. And the question was about. Okay, so one more quick question. If your bowel is outside of your body, is there anything that can be done about that?
If what?
Your bowel is outside of your body.
Okay. You're probably talking about, yeah, there is something that could be done about it. And I think that the person is saying that probably the anus has prolapsed out of the body. The person would probably need to see a surgeon to probably fix that. And really what happens sometimes, the bowel can prolapse out of the bowel because of constipation and bad dietary practices and probably other issues, including probably obesity and other things like that. And having to force very long in passing stools and so on, the bowel can prolapse. In that case, you would probably need to see a surgeon to see if they can do something about it. They probably could do something about it. So they would probably need to see either a gastroenterologist probably first, and then if the gastroenterologist can't do anything about it, probably would not be able to do anything about it, then they should be probably referred to a surgeon. There are probably some holistic methods you can try first, but generally speaking, once you have the bowel prolapsed out of the body, that is a situation that needs to be addressed very quickly so that you don't run into all kinds of problems, because the minute time you have another bowel movement, it probably would prolapse out. The other thing is, if you sit too long on the toilet, some people go in the toilet and just sitting there, reading books of Mills and Boons, as if there's no tomorrow. They're just sitting there. That's not a good thing, because what happens, it helps the bowel to sort of lose the sort of control. You can have, hemorrhoidal problems made worse by just sitting there. You should go there, floop, that stuff is out, and boom, you get out of there. So 2 seconds And if, trust me, if you eat right, in 2 seconds, you go there and floops, it's done, and you get up, go bathe or whatever it is, and it's all over. It's done with. But don't sit down there within mills and boons or boons and mills and just sitting there. You're doing harm to yourself. Okay.
Sorry, Uncle. You got Jesse, Jane, and Carlina flat out. Okay. And just a little bit on the previous question. What if, because just want to look at another aspect of their question, what if in their situation they may have like a sack?
A sack?
Yes, like a bag outside, sometimes how they have, yes.
Right. I see what you mean. Okay, so in that case, it could be either ileostomy, where they take the ileum, the last part of the small bowel, and made an ostomy so that the stool can come out there. Or they can have a colostomy, where they take part of the colon, the lower part of the colon, and brought it out on the skin so the person can have their normal bowel movements. If that is the case, and the bowel has extruded out, they may need to see the surgeon, because that would not be fixed by itself. Sometimes what happens, the bowel wall becomes weakened, and there are other factors with the surgery or other complications that can occur, and sometimes that may happen, and they may need to go back to the surgeon to have to actually look at it to see if corrective surgery could be done, or if there are other methods that could be done to actually prevent that from happening. So that will be more of a surgical consultation that needs to be addressed, and so on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that was Dr. Francis Amelie. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are so happy to have you. I know that you've been doing a lot for our family. Even in my own situation, you have been very helpful. And so we really appreciate you, and we love you. And to
I love you too.
All right.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right. So
It's
that.
a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
I
All
want to
right.
thank you very much for being able to share a little bit with you all, and I really thank you for that.
We thank you so much for being willing to come. We really appreciate having you. All right. Take care and say hi to Auntie Carol.
Before Dr. Andy leaves, those of you from Grenada, you might know him. He's a Grenadian by birth, and he's from up in the New Hampshire area. So be proud of the son of the soil. He's doing a great work out there, because I know he counsels people. He doesn't just, prescribe. He spends time and speak to his patients, in Houston, Texas. So if you're in the Houston area and you need a doctor, check on Dr. Amelie, because he's a good man. In 3 John chapter 1, the Bible says, "To my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth." I talk about loving Dr. Amelie. That's just the right text. To my dear friend, Dr. Francis Amelie, whom I love in the truth. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health. I'm reading from the New International Version. That you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children or my friends are walking in the truth. That's from 3 John chapter 1, verses 1 to 4. Isn't that appropriate? Very appropriate.
Very appropriate.
And to all those who are listening, we pray that you will heed the counsel given by, not only counsel, the warning, the advice, the professional, information given to us by Dr. Amelie, and that you have a wonderful week. Jesse will not be doing any quiz this week, so I'm going to close with prayer now. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you, Dr. Amelie, for coming on. We've been trying to do this for months and months and months, and finally here we are. And we pray that it was a blessing to many. It was a blessing to us. So thank you. Father in heaven, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for the information that you have provided for us as your children. We thank you for the guidelines that you gave for our health and for our well-being. And we thank you for knowledgeable people who take this information and can re-impart it to us in ways that we can understand. Give us details that we may follow so that we may prosper and be in good health. Lord, we thank you again for Dr. Amelie, who's been with us tonight, and for his family, and for his dedication to good health. Not just prescriptions and just go do this and do that, but give people guidelines so they might be able to live healthier and healthy lives. Thank you for the listening audience tonight. Thank you for those that will be reached with this information. May we share this information with others, so not we ourselves be healthy, but we live in healthy environments. And sooner or later, instead of red zones, we'll have blue zones, because we have heed your word, we have heed the truth, and we have obeyed your guidelines, and now we are healthy. So for long life and health, we just ask you to provide us with this, and may we continue to listen to your word and read your word and stay close to you and get the right sunshine and exercise and water and all the other good stuff that we need so we remain healthy. May we have a great week, a great weekend, and a great week. And until next time we meet again, when we have other special guests, we just pray that you will watch over each and every one of us. There are some people that ask for special prayer. Lord, you know them, you know each one of them. My wife called the names earlier on before the worship, so you know the exact names that we'll be praying about. So we ask you to pass by them wherever they are. Or the people who stayed up tonight in many different parts in the Far East, we ask you to be with them too. And those around in the Western world, we ask you to continue to bless them until we meet again next Friday night. Watch over each and every one of us. May we come back with a great report. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. God bless you all.
Hold on.
Just 1 second, Casey has something.
Okay, so 2 announcements before we close. So, I don't know if you guys saw the video today, but the CD has arrived. So for those who are waiting for pre-orders, the CDs will start shipping out soon. And the concert, we now have a date for the concert. Gentlemen and young lady, can I have a drum roll, please? Man, y'all could have been the angels giving thunder. The concert will be November 22nd. So November 22nd will be the concert. We'll have a flyer out soon with the date and the time and all that kind of good information on it. But it will be November 22nd. How do you like the comment? Yes. Should I address that? Yes. Should I ask the question or should I ask it? Okay. Someone had asked a question. I had gone over just because it seemed like we were running out of time and it seemed like it would have been a complicated answer. But Dr. Amelie, if you are up to answering the wait, is he still there? Yes, he's still there. Okay, are you up to answering the question for us?
Bring it on.
Okay. All right. So the person said they worked in a hospital in Houston where they saw that cancer was high in the Hispanic community. They wanted to know how can we educate them about eating less flour and more vegetable and fruits.
That's a very good question. The answer is not a very easy one. It should be very straightforward. But people are very they are very stooped in their cultural aspects of eating and how they live. It's very difficult to actually change this attitude. I see a lot of what we would call our Hispanic brothers and sisters who eat a lot of processed white flour with tortilla and all these things and meats and other things like that. And there may be some slight genetic differences. and I'm saying this I'm saying this with a certain degree of advisedness, so to speak. But the way how they eat does not necessarily help out how their systems should behave. Let me put it another way. There are Indians in the United States, and there are Pima Indians in South America, in Mexico for that matter of fact. They are exactly the same people as that were in North America. They were simply separated artificially by the founding of the United States and the founding of Mexico. The Pima Indians in the United States, they have almost 100% diabetes. Almost 100% of them, if they live the way they live, they will get diabetes. While we see the Pima Indians in South America do not have the same incidence. And it's because their way of life is different. They are exactly the same people, but they are really having different rates of diseases with respect to diabetes and so on. The same thing in the Hispanic community. The way how we are eating in the Hispanic community leads to all kinds of problems. But we are not just seeing that. What we do know is that the Southern diet, I did make some notes on the Southern diet. The Southern diet is considered, the Southern Black American diet is considered to be probably the most dangerous in the world for cancer and other problems because of the fats that they eat, all the oils and fats that they eat in their diet. It is very, very, very dangerous. So I think not just the Hispanic community that is hard on changing their ways, but the blacks are also hard on changing their ways. So are the whites, so are the Indians. I was in England for a while when I was partially in medical school up there, and we noticed that the Indians who came from India, they were very thin and they were very healthy. No diabetes, no high blood pressure, no nothing. They spent about 5, 7 years to 10 years in England, and all of them end up being fat. They had diabetes, they had high blood pressure, cholesterol problems, heart attacks, all these things. It is a dietary problem. So doctors have to learn more about nutrition. That's the problem. We have to learn more about nutrition, and whenever we see the patients in the office, we have to encourage and talk about it. But the thing is, because most doctors don't know anything about nutrition, it is a problem because they don't know what to tell the patient to eat with respect to what is a healthy diet. They don't know what constitutes a healthy diet. I did not know anything about nutrition. I did not know how to read a food label. I had to go and learn about it myself. I took a course in Cornell University called eCornell. And that's where I learned a lot of the stuff that I knew, that I now know, apart from all the tons of books that I read before. But when I did the course, it really crystallized and put everything together for me that I had as loose cannons. It put it together in a form that I really understood what was going on. So doctors need to re-educate themselves in nutrition, because it is critically important that you talk to your patients and tell them that this is not just a pill. Pill would not solve the problem.
All right. Ooh. I think he went to get something. Okay.
Just hold on for a second. My battery's going low.
Okay. All right, so I'll give you a moment, but yes, so I hope that answers your question about what he was saying concerning education. Okay. All right, so Mom, is there anything else you wanted to say while we're just waiting? I think he's ready. Are you good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So in summarizing, it really is it's a multifaceted thing. What I think, which I did not come up with the idea, but I thought about it before, but didn't know how to really start it. What I think we need to do is really to have a more team approach with respect to how we manage patients. So if a patient comes to my office, it is not good enough for him to come to my office and that's it. So we should have a team. So I should have a nutritionist on board. I should have an exercise physiologist on board. I should have a social worker on board. I should have a cardiologist that I work closely with. I should have an endocrinologist that I work closely with. I should have somebody who deals with stress management, like somebody who specializes in yoga or whatever it is. So, and then when the patient comes, the patients can be referred to these people right away so that we can prevent the person from actually going down the path that they are taking and get them off the hospital system. Remember, our system is built on we get paid generally by when the patient gets sick. And the things that we do, that's how we get paid. We don't get paid for when the patient stays healthy. Some doctors told me, Dr. Amelie, you are doing a bad thing to yourself. You should not be telling patients these things because they will get well and you will not have any patients in your office. People tell me that. So it has to be a community approach because the doctors are not doing it. The social workers are not doing it. The nutritionists, some of them are giving very bad advice, very bad nutritional advice. And so people have to educate themselves. They have to educate themselves also. They can't depend on the doctors alone because the doctors do not know and they're not doing it. So what is going to happen? So it has to be a comprehensive approach in terms of everybody taking a little time to help out and to do what they can do. But it's not one person. If you leave it on one person, nobody's going to do anything.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you taking out the time to answer that last question. All right, so is that all? We have written? Well, thank you so much again for being with us. We pray you have a wonderful night, and God bless you. And thank you for the amazing work that you do.
Thank you for all the prayers, singing songs, and all the prayers that you are saying on my behalf, so that God helps me to live healthier and longer, so that I can do His will for a couple more years.
Of course.
And that couple more years, I'm definitely going for more than 100.
As you should. And I did see you. I saw you singing along while we were singing. Yeah, but thank you so much for coming. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. So, all right. Thank you, everyone, for being with us this evening. We are, as always, it is a pleasure to worship with you. All right, so we will see you, I believe, next week. One announcement.
Remember, the clock goes back.
Is that tonight?
No, Sunday.
Oh, are you serious?
Enjoy that extra hour of sleep, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, for those of you who are in zones where the time zone changes, enjoy that extra hour of sleep on my behalf. Mm-hmm. All right, guys.
You don't get to change stuff.
Yes, no, at least not this time. But we love you guys. Take care. And we will see the next time we meet. God bless. Bye-bye.